The traveling version of this wall that you see in front of you was on display at what we referred to as the old museum on Fort Moore, then Fort Benning, about 2006. So when the museum opened in 2009, we were well aware of the wall that we see in front of us. So a couple years later, about 2012, Ben Williams, who at that time was the president of our foundation, said, let's go down to Houston. Let's make a pitch to see if we can get him to retire it here. So we put together this PowerPoint presentation. We thought it was a very powerful case to retire it here. And in typical military fashion, the bottom line's up front. So the first slide was, we're here to ask you for consideration of retiring your Dignity Memorial Vietnam Wall at the National Infantry Museum. And they said, you got it. We never got to the second slide. They had clearly thought about this before we got there. So after 3 years in the Georgia sun, the wall had become faded to the point where you could barely read the names and you couldn't etch it. It was about the same time that we built the Global War on Terrorism wall, which is behind you, and it's in granite, and it's a beautiful memorial for that war as well. We had a ceremony to dedicate the resurfacing of the Vietnam Wall, and we had dignitaries from Dignity Memorial come up here. Jay Andrews, who was a high-level executive, came up here for that ceremony, and at the ceremony, he gave us a slip of paper and said, you now own it. So our 5-year lease became permanent. So it's taken us a long time to do that, but that's what we're here today to do, is to honor this traveling wall that's now become a permanent wall here. In addition to making it granite, we've also added 5 new panels, and I hope that after the ceremony you'll go and look on the far end of the wall. These 5 panels give more context to the war and talk about the aftermath of the war as well.
The Dignity Memorial Vietnam Wall was started as a way for our company to pay tribute to the more than 58,000 service members that gave the ultimate sacrifice in Vietnam. It's a way to honor and remember those like my husband's great uncle, Sergeant Larry Homan, who was killed in action in December 1961 at only 21 years old. From 1990 to 2013, the wall traveled across the country, visiting cities from Sacramento, California, to Arlington, Texas, to Buffalo, New York, and of course, Columbus, Georgia. And though the wall is not traveling anymore and it's permanently here at the National Infantry Museum, we still continue to support our veterans through the Dignity Memorial Homeless Veterans Burial Program, which provides eligible homeless and indigent veterans with a full burial ceremony with military honors. And we know that this next chapter of the Dignity Memorial Vietnam Wall, refaced in granite, will bring peace, healing, and comfort to many more generations who will be able to reflect on and remember those who died in Vietnam. And that would not be possible at all without the National Infantry Museum and all the donors who saw this project through.
Quite an experience, typical of the time, the big war, 500,000 troops in country. Thank God for Army aviation, the attack helicopters, the lift assets, the medevac, particularly in the 1st Cavalry Division. They would come in and get you at any cost, winch you out through the jungle, surgical units a half hour away. So who served? Average age 19. World War II, the average age of a soldier was 26 in the infantry. It dropped to 19. Most of my company were teenagers, sometimes age 20. Best educated force we ever put in the field. The majority of them, 80%, were high school graduates. 2/3 of them were volunteers. 2/3 of them were volunteers. So to be honest, the way the armed forces got manned was draft avoidance. You ended up volunteered for the Navy, the Air Force, the Coast Guard, reserve components, anything to get out of being infantry in Vietnam and in my company. Pretty low chance of getting drafted. Of 27 million eligible, 1.9 million got drafted. So you actually, generally speaking, many of the soldiers that volunteered were not really avoiding the draft. Probably the most important thing we learned was that when the country's in trouble, young Americans, women and men, will step forward and defend us. So to all of you, the Vietnam veterans, I'm glad you're here. I'm really proud of the Infantry Museum and Fort Moore for sponsoring, supporting all this activity. We're about to have a Korean War memorial. We're going to have a Gold Star family memorial. The World War II statues, a lot of them are on the Walk of Honor up there on the hill, if you get a chance to see that. And it's a place of reflection. And I tell people that Fort Moore is much more important in most ways than Harvard, Stanford, Notre Dame, etc. This is a place the country is put together and protected. So God bless all of you that served in uniform before and for those who are now serving.